They told us America's biggest retailers would always protect our kitchen tables. Bulk bargains at Costco, rock-bottom staples at Walmart, shelves so predictable you could shop on autopilot. But now in 2025, 7 everyday foods have quietly doubled in price. And the shock waves aren't just hitting wallets, they're shaking the trust we built over decades. From the breakfast eggs that once cost less than coffee to the rotisserie chicken that felt untouchable, every aisle is starting to feel like a minefield. Tariffs meant to help bring production home are backfiring, fueling a chain reaction of cost spikes that even Donald Trump is fuming about. If this can happen to foods we thought were safe from inflation, what's next? Milk, bread, medicine? And if the price tags keep climbing, how many families already stretched to the breaking point will have to choose between nutrition and necessity? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today we expose the real reasons these 7 staples have doubled, the hidden forces behind the sticker shock, and why this may be just the beginning. Number 1. Costco coffee. Picture this. You roll into Costco on a Saturday morning, the parking lot already buzzing like a county fair before noon. Carts rumble past, piled so high they look like they're ready for a cross-country haul, and somewhere between the rotisserie chickens and the paper towel towers, there's that unmistakable wall of Kirkland coffee. It's been more than a beverage. It's a steady morning companion, the quiet hero that greets you before the sun, the steady handshake at the breakfast table, the smell that says everything's going to be all right. For years, buying it in bulk felt like beating the system. Pay less, drink more, and keep the cupboard stocked without sacrificing the electric bill. But walk down that same aisle in 2025, and it's a different kind of jolt. The price tags now hit you harder than the caffeine. That big 3-pound can or bag of whole beans, nearly twice what it cost just a few short years ago. And no, this isn't one of those "I swear it used to be cheaper" moments. Receipts, price trackers, and consumer reports all confirm it. July 2025 saw Kirkland's coffee prices hovering at double their pre-2020 level. It's as if someone started charging you extra for rainwater because they decided to put a toll booth over the clouds. The spark that lit this fire came from the commodity markets. Arabica coffee futures shot up to $4.41 a pound earlier this year, the highest in living memory, turning every bean from Brazil to Ethiopia into a precious metal. America, with barely a sprout of coffee grown on its own soil, suddenly found itself paying premium prices for every shipment. And then, the political curveball. Tariffs slapped on imports, supposedly to bring jobs home, except coffee doesn't grow in Kansas. Add taxes on the steel and aluminum for the cans, and you're now paying more for both the beans and the container they ride in. Nature piled on like an uninvited guest at a dinner party. Brazil's brutal droughts, Central America's blistering heat waves, and crop-killing pests all tightened the supply. The chain of delivery turned into a creaky bridge swaying in the wind. Every step forward felt risky. Even Costco, with its muscle and bulk buying, couldn't sidestep every blow. Freight costs went haywire, metals got pricier from other trade fights, and behind the scenes, warehouse teams scrambled to keep shelves stocked before the next spike hit. For households living on Social Security checks or hourly wages, this isn't about fancy coffee suddenly costing more. It's about watching a daily comfort turn into a quiet luxury. When your morning cup demands twice the money, it's not just a dent in the wallet, it's a small but sharp cut into the rhythm of life. The kind of change that doesn't make headlines but still leaves a mark, like finding out the neighbor's porch light you've relied on for years has gone dark. And here's the truth. Costco isn't cackling in some back office, plotting to squeeze every dime. They've delayed price hikes longer than many others, adjusted blends, bought ahead when they could. but they're caught in a web spun far above their control, where weather, global trade, and policy collide in ways that can shake the coffee out of your cup before you even take a sip. So what do? Some folks turn to Sam's Club's Members Mark coffee, leaning on Robusta beans to dodge Arabica's sky-high prices. Others get creative, signing up for local roaster subscriptions with senior-friendly pricing, switching to instant or concentrate that can save 20 to 40% per cup, or even blending Kirkland with a cheaper roast, a trick diners have been using for decades. And for the adventurous, there's always tea, chicory, or barley coffee, proof that the ritual, not just the roast, can carry the comfort. But stepping back, the bigger picture looms. How does a country that guzzles coffee by the gallon end up taxing itself into paying more for something it doesn't even grow? If today it's coffee, will tomorrow bring the same story for bread, milk, or medicine? These price shifts don't just change what's in your cart, they change the quiet rituals, the little joys, and perhaps the trust you place in the very places that once felt like part of the family. Number 2, Walmart eggs. Step into Walmart on any given morning, and for years it felt like the one place where breakfast didn't require a second mortgage. You could stroll in wearing yesterday's hoodie, grab a dozen eggs for less than the cost of your coffee, and be back home before the frying pan even warmed up. Eggs were the great equalizer of the grocery aisle. Whether you were whipping up a souffle or burning toast, they were always affordable, always there. Walmart built its reputation on that kind of stability, making us believe that no matter what else went wrong in the world, the sunny side would always be up. But 2025 has taken that carton and stuffed it with more than just yolks. It's carrying a bill that feels like a bad punchline. In some regions, prices have doubled compared to early 2024. USDA data and consumer trackers back it up. Those $1.80 to $2 20 dozens from last year are now ringing up at $3.60 to $4.20. For households trying to stretch every grocery dollar, that's not just inflation. It's a quiet betrayal of one of the last reliable staples left in the fridge. The cracks began with avian influenza, and this wasn't some minor barnyard sniffle. It was a full-blown national cull. By early this year, more than 77 million birds had been wiped out in an effort to contain outbreaks, with egg-laying hens taking the worst of it. Each lost hen meant months of vanished production. Even a buying giant like Walmart couldn't magic up supply that simply wasn't there. Then came the feed price surge. Soy and corn costs spiked in 2025, driven by global drought patterns and tariffs hitting imported feed supplements. When it costs more to feed a hen, every egg she lays inherits that price. Farmers raise their rates, wholesalers follow suit, and Walmart, despite its legendary bargaining power, ends up passing the cost to us. And the hits kept coming. Diesel prices soared thanks to unrest in the Middle East and new maritime insurance premiums sparked by global shipping disruptions. Moving fragile, temperature-sensitive eggs from farms to Walmart's far-flung rural stores got more expensive by the mile, and those miles add up quickly. Perhaps the bitterest twist? Packaging tariffs. The same trade measures that slam coffee cans and bottled drinks also landed on imported pulp and certain plastics, turning the humble egg carton into a cost burden of its own. Imagine paying extra for the box that holds the thing, and suddenly that flimsy pulp container is no longer an afterthought. It's part of the price pain. For anyone living on a fixed income, this is more than just a higher bill. Eggs aren't just breakfast. They're the secret ingredient in pancakes, the binder in meatloaf, the quick omelet that saves dinner when the fridge is empty. Doubling their price is like doubling the rent on the most important corner of your kitchen. And while Walmart isn't plotting an egg heist, it's easy to see how they've landed here. They're fighting the same shortages, feed spikes, fuel hikes, and packaging costs as every other grocer. Could they absorb more of it? Maybe for a little while, but at Walmart's scale, even a nickel loss per egg could snowball into hundreds of millions. The machine they've built is designed to move products, not bleed indefinitely. That leaves shoppers to adapt. Some turn to regional grocers or farmers markets that source from smaller, local flocks untouched by the worst flu outbreaks. In certain areas, Aldi is undercutting Walmart by as much as 20%, thanks to local supply contracts. Bulk buying during promotions and freezing beaten eggs in meal-sized portions is another trick. Yes, it works for baking and cooking. And diversifying protein, keeping canned tuna, dried beans, or even powdered eggs on hand can help bridge the gap until prices calm down. Still, the unsettling thought lingers. If even eggs, local and seemingly insulated, can double in price at America's largest grocer, what does that say about the fragility of the system? How many of our cheap forever foods are just one outbreak, one tariff, or one logistical hiccup away from becoming luxuries? And when breakfast starts to feel like a negotiation instead of a comfort, what else about our daily table might quietly be on the chopping block? Number 3, Costco olive oil. Walk through Costco's aisles, and there's one green-tinted giant that always caught the eye. Those massive gallon-sized bottles of Kirkland extra virgin olive oil, the kind you could almost mistake for motor oil if you didn't look twice. It was a quiet badge of Costco pride. Mediterranean quality without the Mediterranean price tag. Families could pour it into skillets, drizzle it over salads, or dunk bread in it without worrying they were burning a hole in their wallet. It wasn't just an ingredient, it was a little luxury that fit into an ordinary paycheck, a touch of Italy or Greece that didn't require a passport. Now in 2025, that same bottle feels like it belongs in the locked case next to jewelry. Industry trackers and trade reports show Costco's extra virgin olive oil nearly doubling in price compared to early 2024. In many regions, the big bottles now push past $25 to $30 each. For those who remember paying half that, the sticker shock is like biting into an unripe olive. Sharp, unpleasant, and hard to swallow. The squeeze started overseas, where the heart of the olive oil world took a beating. Spain, which produces nearly half of all the olive oil on Earth, faced its worst drought in decades in 2024, wiping out as much as 50% of its yield. By the time the 2025 harvest came around, back-to-back heat waves and wildfires had carved into whatever was left. Italy, Greece, and Portugal all reported painful drops of their own. When multiple producing nations all run short at the same time, the marketplace turns into an all-out bidding war, and even Costco's bulk contracts don't get a free pass. Then came the tariffs. This year, new U.S. trade measures on European agricultural imports, sold to the public as a way to level the playing field, ended up hitting olive oil square in the bottle. Import duties on packaged food. Products pushed wholesale prices sharply higher. And there's no backup plan here. America doesn't have the climate or the time to suddenly plant enough olive groves to offset the shortfall. You can't drop a few trees in Nevada dirt and expect Tuscany-level harvests next summer. Shipping only made matters worse. Geopolitical tensions in the Mediterranean drove maritime insurance premiums higher, container shortages gummed up the flow of goods, and fuel surcharges meant that the trip from Valencia or Piraeus to an American port cost more than ever. Those extra expenses don't vanish. They get quietly folded into every ounce you buy. There's also the shadow of fraud to contend with. With prices spiking, regulators on both sides of the Atlantic are cracking down on adulterated oils. Cheaper seed oils passed off as extra virgin, mislabeled origins, and shady blends. Honest suppliers now have to pour more money into lab testing, certification, and traceability systems. Every inspection and piece of paperwork eventually shows up as another bump on your Costco receipt. For households counting every dollar, this isn't a gourmet complaint. It's a hit to one of the healthiest and most versatile fats in the kitchen. Olive oil isn't just for high-end vinaigrettes. It's for the weeknight stir-fry, the crispy roast potatoes, the chicken skin that browns just right. When prices double, you either ration it like a rare medicine or replace it with cheaper, less healthy seed oils loaded with omega-6 fats. A trade-off that leaves health and flavor on the losing end. To their credit, Costco has tried to keep the quality steady. They've sourced from multiple countries, negotiated hard to soften the blow, and done their best to ride out the shortages. But they're in a game where the rules are written by climate shifts, global politics, and markets that reward whoever can pay the most. Forces that no warehouse giant can simply strong-arm into submission. Shoppers still have a few plays left. Some pivot to canola or avocado oil blends that run up to 40% cheaper per ounce. Others find local co-op imports sold in refill stations, dodging packaging tariffs entirely. A patient few join community buying groups to split 5-gallon drums, cutting per-liter costs dramatically. And in true old-school fashion, butter or rendered animal fats can fill the gap in recipes where olive oil's signature flavor isn't essential. Just as our grandparents once cooked before extra virgin became a household phrase. But the lingering question is as rich as it is unsettling. How did something as humble as cooking oil become a borderline luxury at a warehouse club? And if tariffs, droughts, and shipping chaos can turn olive oil into a twice as expensive indulgence, what happens when the same storm hits staples we can't swap out so easily? Flour, sugar, or even water? Number 4, Walmart canned tuna. For the longest time, Walmart's canned tuna was the quiet workhorse of the grocery aisle, tucked low on the shelves, waiting patiently for anyone who needed a quick, cheap hit of protein. It was the unsung hero of lunchboxes, late-night casseroles, and storm-prep pantries, ready to ride out whatever life threw at you. Lean, low-fat, and with a shelf life long enough to outlast a couple of marriages, it was steady in price, steady in presence. The kind of food you could buy without checking the tag because you already knew it wouldn't hurt. Tuna was the blue-collar protein that didn't flinch when beef prices went crazy. But in 2025, that humble little can has started acting like it belongs in the luxury goods aisle. In many parts of the country, Walmart's private label and name brand tuna has climbed to nearly double what it cost in early 2024. Standard 5-ounce cans that used to sit comfortably at $1.20 to $1.50 are now brushing $2.50 to $3. And this isn't just one of those fuzzy memory, wasn't it cheaper before moments. Retail scan data and grocery price audits from this spring and summer confirm it. This is the real thing, and it's a hard bite to swallow. The trouble started in the Pacific, where the ocean itself seems to be rationing supply. International fisheries were slapped with some of the tightest catch quotas in history after alarming declines in skipjack and yellowfin stocks, a result of relentless overfishing and El Niño-driven ocean warming. With fewer fish hitting the nets, prices were already climbing before a single can was sealed. Then came the tariff hit. In 2025, the U.S. expanded import duties on certain packaged seafood, particularly those processed in Southeast Asia. And here's the kicker. While tuna can be caught in multiple oceans, a massive share ends up in canning facilities in Thailand, the Philippines, and Vietnam, all of which now sit squarely in tariff territory. That means Walmart suppliers are paying more to bring in every shipment, and those costs are swimming straight onto your grocery bill. Add to that a freight situation that's turned into a game of logistical whack-a-mole. Red Sea trade route disruptions, container shortages, and fuel surcharges have pushed shipping rates for temperature-controlled goods to their highest levels in years. Sure, canned tuna doesn't need to be frozen solid, but it still relies on careful, controlled shipping to keep it safe and intact. Every detour around conflict zones or extra day at sea means more money per can. And there's another twist: labor reform. Several major tuna processors came under fire in 2024 and 2025 over labor rights violations, forcing them to clean up supply chains, raise wages, and meet stricter certification standards to keep contracts with big-name retailers. All those compliance costs, they don't disappear. They just quietly join the growing tab. For shoppers on tight budgets, the tuna price spike stings more than most. This isn't just a pantry filler. It's one of the few non-perishable proteins you could stock up on during sales and stretch into dozens of cheap filling meals. Double the price, and it's not just a pinch. It's a hole in the weekly meal plan. Sandwiches, pasta bakes, casseroles, salads, every one of them gets just a little more expensive and just a little more out of reach for those counting every penny. Walmart hasn't abandoned all value here. Their multi-packs still work out cheaper per can, and they're keeping budget-friendly, light tuna and water on the shelf alongside the pricier albacore. But when the ocean offers fewer fish, the processors are tariffed, and the shipping lanes are a mess. Even the retail giant can't keep prices from drifting upward. Some shoppers adapt by bulk buying frozen fish fillets from warehouse clubs to cut the per-pound cost, if they have the freezer space. Others swap to canned chicken, which often beats tuna on price per ounce and works in most of the same recipes. Health-conscious bargain hunters turn to dried lentils or chickpeas for protein at a fraction of the cost, tweaking the seasoning to recreate the feel of tuna salad. And for the adventurous, local ethnic markets can be a goldmine, importing non-tariffed regional fish varieties at friendlier prices, if you're open to switching flavors and brands. Still, the bigger question looms like a dark cloud over the pantry. If even a protein that lives in the vast open ocean can't escape the ripple effects of tariffs, climate change, and labor ethics battles, what chance does anything else on the shelf have? And if canned tuna, once the ultimate budget standby, now feels like a splurge, how long before the rest of the pantry starts feeling the same way? Number 5. Costco rotisserie chicken. For years, Costco's rotisserie chicken wasn't just something you bought. It was a little piece of American legend. That $4.99 price tag was more than a bargain. It was a statement. It told you, we're on your side. No matter what chaos the economy was throwing outside those warehouse doors. Families built dinner plans around it, retirees knew it meant a full meal without turning on the oven, and clever cooks on YouTube bragged about stretching one bird into 3 nights worth of food. It was hot, juicy, seasoned, just right, and felt like Costco's way of quietly slipping you a win in a game that usually feels rigged. But in 2025, the bird's halo is starting to slip. Sure, some clubs still flash that stubborn $4.99 tag, but the fine print is written in the food itself. Smaller birds, lighter seasoning, and in some urban stores, prices edging up to $7 or even $8. Consumer watchdogs and local news outlets have caught on, reporting that a few locations have quietly broken the decades-old sacred ceiling. For members who've come to see that chicken as the warehouse's ultimate promise, it's like finding out your favorite hometown hero just got booked for shoplifting. The heat started in the chicken industry before the bird even hit the rotisserie. Feed prices jumped in 2025, driven by drought-crushed corn harvests and tariffs on imported feed additives. Every pound of meat cost more before it was even processed. Add in rising labor costs at Costco's massive Fremont, Nebraska poultry plant. Workers now earning more under new contracts in plants facing stricter safety compliance after critical media coverage. And suddenly that cheap chicken is racking up some expensive baggage. Then comes the cold truth of transportation. Sure, they roast it on site, but those raw birds don't magically appear in the back room. They're hauled in on refrigerated trucks, sometimes across multiple states. Diesel price spikes, driver shortages, and new cold chain regulations have all piled onto the tab for simply getting that chicken to your store in one safe, chilled piece. And here's a cost most folks don't even think about. The dome, that black and clear plastic clamshell that traps the steam and keeps the skin glistening. It's petroleum-based plastic, and in 2025, new tariffs have made producing and importing those domes more expensive. It may sound petty, but multiply that cost bump by millions of birds a year, and you've suddenly turned a packaging choice into a budget headache. For Costco's core shoppers, especially seniors stretching fixed incomes, this isn't just a matter of a little more at the register. That rotisserie chicken is dinner without heating up the kitchen, protein without shelling out steakhouse money, and leftovers that quietly fill lunches for days. Watching it shrink or creep up in price feels like losing one of the last unshakable bargains left in America. To Costco's credit, they're still fighting the good fight. Executives admit they've been absorbing losses on the chicken for years, hoping that the goodwill it builds keeps members walking through the doors. But every spike in feed, fuel, labor, or packaging wears down their ability to keep that promise. At some point, the math doesn't bend anymore. Some shoppers are adjusting already, buying raw whole chickens from warehouse clubs or local grocers and roasting them at home to stretch every dollar, even with higher feed costs. Others are turning to farm co-ops or bulk buys from butchers, portioning and freezing for future meals. And those chasing convenience without the Costco price bump are finding roast chicken or duck at ethnic supermarkets, often bigger, bolder in flavor, and still budget-friendly. But here's the part that lingers in the back of the mind. If Costco can't protect the price of its most famous product, the one that felt untouchable, how many other forever deals are quietly running on borrowed time? How many of the staples we trust to anchor our grocery budgets are just one bad harvest, one tariff, or one shipping delay away from becoming luxuries we never thought we'd have to second guess? Number 6, Walmart peanut butter. For generations, Walmart's peanut butter aisle has been a place of quiet reassurance. Those rows of jars, big, small, creamy, chunky, sat there like an unshakable promise that some foods would always stay within reach. It was the great democratizer of school lunches and midnight snacks. A little protein, a little fat, and a whole lot of comfort in a single swipe of a knife. Parents leaned on it to feed their kids quickly. Older folks kept it handy for no-cook meals. And college students practically built entire semesters on peanut butter sandwiches. It was one of those sacred, always affordable items that made Walmart's low-price pledge feel more like a pact than a marketing line. But here in 2025, that jar is starting to feel like it belongs in a boutique grocery store. Across the country, both name brand and great value peanut butter have climbed close to double their early 2024 prices in certain sizes. 16-ounce jars that once sat comfortably at $2 to $2.50 are now pushing $4 to $5. This isn't some fuzzy, I think it used to be cheaper memory. Grocery price trackers and consumer reports confirm it's a nationwide climb, especially over the last 9 months. The first hit came right from the fields. In 2024, drought scorched major peanut-growing states like Georgia and Texas, while floods in other areas damaged stored crops. Fewer peanuts meant higher auction prices for processors, and every penny from that bidding war ended up sealed inside the jar you toss into your cart. Then there's what happens after harvest. In 2025, new U.S. tariffs landed squarely on imported components used in peanut butter production, certain stabilizers, emulsifiers, and even packaging materials. Sure, the peanuts themselves are mostly American-grown, but the jar, the lid, and some of the additives that keep your spread silky smooth now come with a tariff surcharge. That's before you even factor in the sharp rise in the cost of processing plants themselves. Under scrutiny for workplace safety and fair wages, many facilities have increased pay and upgraded conditions, changes that were overdue and necessary, but they inevitably add to the per-unit cost. And let's not forget the price of getting it from point A to point B. Peanut butter is heavy, and in 2025, shipping anything heavy costs more than it has in years. Diesel prices spiked, freight insurance premiums rose, and every trip from the plant to Walmart's vast network of distribution centers added just a little more to the final price. Move millions of jars this way, and those little mores stack up fast. For households already stretched thin, the impact is immediate and personal. Peanut butter isn't just a sandwich filler, it's the backstop when meat prices soar, the protein source when the fridge is empty, and the one food picky kids will almost always agree to eat. When the cost doubles, it's not just a dent in the grocery budget, it's a direct hit to household stability. Walmart hasn't walked away from the category. Great value jars still undercut national brands, but even they've crept up noticeably. For a chain that built its reputation on being the cheapest game in town, that's a flashing warning sign that no product is safe from the tide. Some shoppers are getting creative. Buying twin packs or jumbo jars at warehouse clubs can shave the per-ounce cost. Grinding your own peanuts at in-store machines in health food or specialty markets dodges tariffs on packaged goods entirely, while skipping additives altogether. Others are turning to alternatives. Sunflower seed butter hasn't been hit as hard by weather or tariffs, and making homemade nut blends from bulk bin sales can bring the cost down without sacrificing flavor. But the bigger question is the one nobody likes to dwell on. If peanut butter, made from a humble southern crop, can get swept up in the same storm of climate trouble, trade policy, and supply chain chaos as pricier, more exotic foods, what else is next in line? And how many more pantry staples are just one bad season away from crossing the line from always affordable to quiet luxury? When our daily staples turn into luxuries, it's time to question the system. Subscribe now and join the conversation.
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.